Good morning.
Happy Monday. What are you
Happy
so
Monday.
surprised for? A new
Oh, it's
background? No, that's
new
you.
backgrounds. It's just me.
You.
I'm the one that moved. Got the new setup. But no, I feel like I'm out of the loop. I missed 1 week when you in 2 weeks. Well, yeah, we'll count the other one. But miss last week's with you and Jamie because, you know, Wi-Fi is
We'll
spectacular.
we'll get
But
into that in a minute. But
yeah,
yeah, ratings went through the roof last week.
yeah, I can
Apparently,
imagine.
something happened where uh, listenership just
It
skyrocketed.
just yeah,
I
I
don't know.
was I was a little shocked because like it
Can't
went
put my finger
live.
on
And then all of a sudden, I just saw our numbers jump like all day. It was crazy. So maybe I should just never join ever again.
it. Yeah, Jamie, what are you doing every Monday?
Oh, that's too good. How was the week? How was everything? With Jamie, I got to tune in a little bit here and there when I was at Favor, but how was that episode in general?
It's great. I mean, Jamie comes with the knowledge. I tried to drop a curveball on him, and he's got answers. So he knows the
He's
stuff.
got the data. He's got the data. That's
He
why we
knows
love
the
him.
stuff. Yeah, last week I was down in Miami with the storied team. Had a great time. Nothing beats a good solid week with your colleagues trying to get everything geared up before launch. So
Yeah.
uh, sprinkling some fun in there and maybe a touch of Hollywood, but we'll see.
Did I get to see some cool Lifehouse videos from you?
Yeah, we
Uh
went by Lifehouse. Big fan of the brand. We just went to have a cocktail, and they turned out to have some live music, and had an absolute blast. Stayed there for 3 or 4 hours, listening to and singing along to a couple of guys down there.
It must have been more than one cocktail if you were singing along, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Maybe not.
I love it. Well, cool. No, it looked great, and I was sad to miss last week's episode, but you were in Miami, I was in Florida. We were a hop, skip, and a jump away. But I know, speaking of Miami, we'll be in Miami together in person.
2 weeks, 3 weeks,
3 weeks,
three
yeah,
weeks.
give or take. So very excited for that to see at the Book Direct show. It's gonna be a really cool time with a lot of our industry friends, obviously. So always a
Yeah,
good time.
we'll have to go live Tuesday, right, instead of Monday.
I'll be there Monday, but we can always go live in person
I'll
Tuesday.
be traveling Monday. Yeah,
Cool,
we'll delay that. We'll go live Tuesday. Cool.
cool.
Everybody sees how we do planning.
Yeah, they should have seen us earlier this morning. What are we talking about? Here we go. Let's talk about it.
Someone doesn't read the topics I send them, but that's all
Hey,
good. So let's
sorry,
jump into it.
I had a long week. I got 7 hour delay on my flight home. 7 hours. I didn't get home till 4 a.m. It
You
was
know
a
how
long
long
day.
my delay was?
0 hours because you flew Delta and you're Prime.
No, I was early.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was, yeah, but Delta, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. Must be nice. Must be nice. Well, sweet. Let's jump into it. We had very little, I would say little comparatively to the previous weeks, activity inside the news. Not a lot of announcements happening. But as you and I were kind of talking about, it's probably due to the fact that, you know, it's conference season and everyone's kind of waiting for the big showtime, the main stage, which I believe would be Verma this year. So um, I know we'll have a couple announcements during the book direct from a couple companies that have given us a heads up, but outside of that, I think the big ones are for VRMA.
Yeah, this is typical for the space. It goes quiet for like the 2 or 3 weeks before Verma, and then 1 or 2 weeks out, there'll be a bunch of news. But a lot of our news this week is on the hotel side. So
Mhm.
excited to share some of that. You want to jump into it?
Yeah, first one, let's go. I'll let you take it away, Mr. Golden.
So Innsmore has a pretty well-known and high-end brand called Hoxton. We've talked about this a lot during COVID, how hotels should just turn into co-working spaces, and they have. And it makes total sense. Like hotels are designed, especially on the higher end of the spectrum, designed very well, have nice amenities, have good coffee shops, tea houses, whatever. The biggest prerequisite for it is really good quality internet, which eliminates some brands from the ability to turn on co-working in their shared spaces. But if you look at your typical hotel of past, every hotel has a conference room that's almost never used. Every hotel has a business center that's almost never used. And if you convert those into cool spaces that people want to spend time in, they will.
Yeah.
So I like it. Any additional revenue to a hotel in this day and age is a win. So I'm a big fan. I'm glad people are, especially on the luxury side, are not scared to try new things. That I think they've been piloting this for a little while, and they're just rolling it out to more properties now. So
Yeah, totally agree. And my if I had one gripe, and I normally don't like to gripe on the show, but and it has nothing to do with a certain brand that we're probably thinking or talking about. But my one gripe about like cool spaces, right? So like the apartment building I just moved into is got a co-working space, it's got a restaurant, rooftop bar, like all these cool amenities, right? But then the staff and the team is so disorganized and it's so like it's a hip space, but it's inconsistent. And that is what frustrates me. So hopefully like if their hours are from 7 to 8, you better be 7 to 8, and then not just one day be like, oh well, our kitchen staff needed to do a meeting at 7 p.m., so we're gonna close the kitchen early without telling anybody,
well, I
even
think
though we're
that's
open
the
till
difference of
like.
a hotel and a multifamily building. A
But
hotel's
that but I was gonna say hotels don't create these cool spaces and start doing stuff like that where they're trying to be trendy and hitting like a younger crowd. Um, because I've seen it outside of not just like the building I'm in now, but there's some cool properties out in Seattle and Portland that I've stayed at, and again, very very cool, attractive spaces, but the inconsistency of their operation can be kind of a big hindrance on the loyalty, like rewards members, and even just people that are looking forward to having like a dinner at 6:30 or 7, when in fact that they close it early without telling anybody. So just a little gripe for those hoteliers out there that think they're trying to be cool. Be
be consistent.
consistent. Yeah. That's my
Yeah, I
one
mean,
gripe.
this Hoxton is a known brand, but it's not a globally recognized brand. So having something like this can help their loyalty and repeat business travelers. So I think there's a good move in here for smaller brands that want to build consistent loyalty travelers. So
100%. And shout out to Andy who's watching us live right now on LinkedIn. Correct. Consistency is key. Good morning, Brian. Hello, everybody. Everyone's tuning in live today. I love it. Um, so the next one, we kind of were joking about the Wi-Fi, and some brands can't do it. But speaking of the brands that can't actually turn their space into a co-working space, based off of
Wyndham
my
has plenty of money to acquire. I think it was $44 million to acquire a new brand,
yeah,
but we couldn't get Will online for the episode last week at a Wyndham hotel. So, to Wyndham's defense, it might be a franchise issue, but it should be covered in the franchise terms that you have to have quality working internet of a certain speed in
yeah,
2022.
yeah.
So
Cheers to
kudos
that.
to Wyndham for spending money in certain places and not others. Um, but we used to have a segment on the show called "Whose Brand Is It Anyway," where
Yeah,
basically the top 5 or 6 hotels collect brands, and this is another highlighted example of just that. Um, it's great to see as we gear up to launch Storied, but I don't think it'll slow down. The travelers are looking for more and more specific and unique experiences,
mhm.
and you can only do that through micro brands on the
I
hotel
agree.
side.
Yeah, I agree. It's very interesting because we've covered this before. I know we've covered this before. We actually had an episode called "Big Brands, Little Brands, No Brands," and basically going into, these big brands. I'm always going to be a Marriott loyalist. Um, but I also don't like some of their niche brands or their sub brands underneath them. But I'm also a big fan of a couple of them underneath as well. Uh, so it's very interesting to see this, and I kind of wanted to actually ask you, Michael, do you think this is kind of coming into the vacation rental space a little bit more, or do you still think we're focusing on the big brands first, and then in the future, those big brands will eventually start branching off into more micro brands?
If you ask the average Joe on the street what's a vacation rental brand, the only one they'll say is Airbnb.
Hmm.
They and if you ask a slightly older person, they might say Verbo. Um, until there's density, there is no brand in vacation rentals. Um, you can brand your properties. If you drive down 30A in Florida, you'll see all the brands. People put their big signs out in front of the house or tattooed on the deck or garage, but there is no brand like Hilton or Marriott or Wyndham
Hmm.
until there's density. And when Vacasa is the biggest company in vacation rentals and they have 35,000 and the next is like tenfold smaller,
Hmm.
um, tough to brand. So there's just the best strategy that's out there, in my opinion, is franchising, which is basically the hotel model.
Yeah.
So it takes time. I do think we will get there as an industry. Casago, iTrip, there's a Skyrun, there's a few others that are franchising. I think
Mhm.
that's the type of thing that's going to get us to a point where there's nationally recognized brands. But it's a lot harder to also have the consistency you need for a brand in
Yeah.
vacation rentals.
100%.
So we'll get there eventually. I think we won't get there without franchising, because if we've learned anything as an industry during all the roll ups of the past few years, with Wyndham, Vacasa, Turnkey buying companies, um, it's local operations still really matters,
Mhm.
and no better way to do that than a franchise.
Yeah. I will say on a local level, I think there is a really strong play for vacation rentals. Even like my family that lives in Orlando, they don't know a thing about vacation rentals other than the property that we have out there.
Yeah,
Um, but they did recognize Cassiola. So I will say, like on a local level, I think when you do really great branding and kind of market awareness, basically just through their cleaning vans and all the other stuff, like and just hearing, talk to Dennis and Michael, the CFO. So Dennis CEO, Michael CFO, in at Favor last week. They just launched Miami. Going away from single family, getting into more urban and condo apartment style property inventory to then, 100 plus units in Aruba already. So I don't know. I do believe that maybe there's some brands that I think if you do it right, kind of like Cassiola, could eventually, maybe not nationally, and at least for a long time, get super recognizable. But on that type of local level, I think it's really important as an example of what to look at and how they're doing it. Because if my brother-in-law and sister who have no idea about anything outside of Airbnb can actually recognize a brand locally in their market, I think that's also a really strong play.
yeah, it's strong for the traveler that goes back to the same market every year.
Yeah,
Uh, and there's plenty of those people for sure. But if your family wants to go anywhere but Orlando,
yeah,
they don't know anything. They don't know any other brand. The Is Cassiola doing franchise in Aruba? I thought
not
they were
franchise.
not.
No, but the Aruba law. So what I understand is kind of like Bermuda, from what I understood from Andrew McConnell, but it's you have to have an operator that has a majority stake in the business on the operations there. So they have to be a local, they have to be a citizen, they have to, have proof of not occupancy, but tendency or whatever, living there for X amount of years, but still, that's it, I would say pretty big in the sense of they launched it a couple months ago, and now they're already like over 100 and something properties there. Um, so owning the market pretty much, professionalizing it, bringing in their tech, their systems.
I
Yeah,
mean, what a great
everything.
thing as a founder when you find your favorite vacation spot, just go open another market.
Yeah, seriously,
I'm sure
seriously,
Dennis loves or loved Aruba, and that's why he ultimately ended up opening shop there
100%,
in Miami
100%.
too, for that matter.
Yeah,
Um, cool. Well, it is fall, which means aside from pumpkin spice lattes, it is football season. I know you don't care about sports, Will. I live in a
yeah,
college town.
yeah.
Um, we have a terrible football team this year, but we won't get into that. Uh, but it's graduate hotels' time to shine. And by golly, they're putting out some news. They put it out right at the beginning of football season. We didn't have a chance to cover it at that point. But guess who's getting into short-term rentals? It makes sense. A hotel brand that really just goes into college towns. Um, they need to get into short-term rentals because people that are going to visit colleges, it's either families going to visit their child. So it could be 3, 4 people going to visit one of their kids. And it's groups going back for sporting events, whether it's football or basketball or anything else. And booking a hotel room, if there's any more than 2 people, just doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
then expanding their brand into vacation rentals, I love it. It's a perfect fit. I used to short term rent my house out during football season or graduation or anything like that. And you make a ton of money, and people will pay a premium to all stay under one roof versus the ADR of a hotel. So, um, local cities are worried, of course, about parties and things like that. But
Yeah.
um, the majority of people coming, if they're there just to purely party, they're probably crashing on their friend's couch,
Yeah, they're
right? It's
not
a
staying
college
at
student.
a vacation rental.
They're not paying $2,000 a night to rent a house, even if they
No.
try and pack in 10 people. So
Yeah.
I love the move. Further evidence of hotels seeing benefits of playing in the short-term rental space. And then vice versa. You just mentioned Cassiola expanding into full buildings. Full buildings are
Mhm.
hotels. If it has a kitchen or not, it could be classified as a short-term rental, sure, but it's a hotel, and it makes sense. Like the bleed over from one market to the next, or the benefit of having a branded stay at the graduate. It
Yeah.
could be um, people who just are obsessed with college football might only pick places that have graduates. Like
Yeah.
people are funny like that. So I like the move. I see it firsthand 8 Saturdays every fall, but it's more than that. You get bookings for graduations, for
Mhm.
homecomings, just various events, bringing grandma to come into town. So um, yeah, cool to see a number of hotels doing different things this week. So looking forward to the next few weeks and the news cycles that might come up.
Oh yeah, we'll have a lot to cover. But it's really cool, like you were just saying, though. I think the diversification of inventory from like the Cassiola standpoint, right, going into urban markets slash, Aruba outside of Orlando and Miami, to then graduate hotels going into vacation rentals. I think diversification of inventory super important. Super, I think you know maybe a little delayed. I kind of maybe figured more companies would do this earlier after COVID, but um, hearing that it's like it's really cool because like you also mentioned earlier, any revenue outside of the nightly rate is super important, and I think diversification of inventory is also very important, just as along the same lines as that. So very cool. I am not a sports fan, but I'm also very happy that Russell Wilson followed me here to Denver, and they're not winning in a great way, but Broncos are doing okay. It's been a little brutal to watch, but I'm now gonna switch over from my Seahawks hat to Broncos hat just
Wow,
because I'm a bandwagon
just like
follower. I don't.
that.
Yeah, I don't.
Loyalty didn't last long, huh?
No. Seattle's not that great either way. So a lot of people think it's super cool. It's not that cool. So yeah, that's where I'm at with all that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but good
Disassociate.
stuff. Yeah, disassociate. Yeah, very good, very good. Anything to wrap up with our listeners for the week? I know we had a couple other people on LinkedIn Live saying good morning. So good morning, Steve Turk, and good morning to everyone else who is going to be watching the replay. Just want to make sure give you guys your shout outs. Anything from you, Michael, before we head off?
No, it was a big week for our company last week, so hoping to carry that momentum through this week and gear up for launch next week.
And say perks of being on a morning news show is that you get to drop it here
Break your own
first.
news. It will be.
Bring your
It
own.
will be where we break the news.
Can't wait. Well, we'll see you all again next Monday. Make sure you like and subscribe on all things Good Morning Hospitality, from Spotify to Apple to YouTube. And we'll see you all again next week.